Hello and welcome to Should I Buy Games. My name is Connor Evans, and today I'll be talking about Uncharted 4, A Thief's End. With the announcement of the full title for Uncharted 4, I couldn't help but attempt to rush through all the possibilities of what the words A Thief's End could mean. Our star Nathan Drake has climbed, shot, and punched his way through 3 Uncharted games thus far, and it's hard to believe that this is the end for him. Does it mean the end in the sense that this is his last journey, or could this mean death for our beloved hero? I'll leave that to you to figure out. But what I can tell you is that Nathan Drake's final journey is one I will never forget. And how could I? From the breakneck opening scene to when the credits rolled, I found myself gawking at the scenery. There just isn't anybody in the industry who pushes the hardware to its full potential like Naughty Dog does. Every stop on this globe-trotting adventure is painstakingly full of detail, almost to a fault. If you venture into the stats menu, you can find a timer that has counted how long you have stood still for. By the time the credits rolled, I had stood still for almost 2 hours, panning the camera, taking in the vistas, or even just taking a moment to breathe. The Uncharted series has never had a problem at taking advantage of verticality, but has never ventured into the horizontal front. For the first time in the series, Uncharted 4 gives you a few open areas to explore. Though these areas are always funneling you towards your next objective, it allows for just enough player choice to freshen things up. You aren't getting a completely open world like some of you may have hoped, but the option to spend an extra few minutes searching an abandoned ruin for lost treasure gives a little bit more longevity and replayability to the game. Wait, what was it talking about again? Oh yeah, sorry, I can't even go a few moments without talking about how good this goddamn game looks. You can see the sweat beads on Nathan's face. Every hair follicle move is like, well, how hair actually moves. Every emotion that comes across the All-Star cast's face made me think I was watching a movie with real people, with real emotions. Coming hot off The Last of Us and being directed by Bruce Straley and Neil Druckmann, hopes were high for a top-notch Uncharted story. Thankfully, Uncharted 4 blows every Uncharted story told thus far out of the water. The series has never been really about the story. Its true heart comes from its likable and well-acted cast of characters, and you get that this time around too in spades, but with the added level of writing and pacing that the Uncharted series has needed. Drake has given up the dangerous life of treasure hunting for a mildly boring desk job. He settled down in New Orleans with his wife Elena. They live a normal life that many of us are probably accustomed to. Drake has put all the adventures literally in the attic, but it's easy to tell that he still has a stirring thirst for adventure. He's pulled back into the world of thieving by his long-lost brother Sam, who has been thought to be long dead. They set out to find the lost treasure of famed pirate Henry Avery, and that's where the adventure begins. Sam may have many of you scratching your heads asking, why wasn't he ever brought up in the previous games, and why is he suddenly back now? This is all handled really well, and by the end I really felt for Sam in the same way I feel about some of the characters that I've grown to love over 3 full games. The story mainly focuses on the relationship between Sam and Nathan, but still gives a fair share of time to series favorites Sully and Elena, while giving callbacks to the lesser characters like Chloe and Cutter. Nolan North, Troy Baker, Richard McGonigal, and Emily Rose are the best in the business, and they fire on all cannons in Uncharted 4, giving heartfelt and convincing performances. The villains in Uncharted have never been the stars of the show, but that's still kind of the case this time around. Rafe, played by Warren Cole, and Nadine, played by Laura Bailey, are superbly acted, but are not menacing enough to instill any kind of fear when on screen. The problem with story-based games is that the gameplay tends to suffer, as it's pushed to the side as a vessel to just get players from point A to point B. This isn't the case in Uncharted 4. The third-person shooting, climbing, and melee combat has never felt so fluent. It's familiar to what you'd expect from an Uncharted game, but the addition of sliding and the grappling rope adds some much-needed freshness to encounters. The rope takes advantage of the wider arenas, allowing you to handle areas in a fresh new style. Using the rope and sliding to traverse is a blast, but using it in combat is damn near enthralling. Using the rope to swing across an area with bullets whizzing past you only to hurl yourself at the nearest enemy whilst landing a devastating punch never gets old. Third-person shooting is tight and feels great, but it's definitely not in the top echelon of shooters. Other than mass-murdering mercenaries, you spend a lot of time climbing and exploring. The climbing mechanic has been a staple of the Uncharted series since its beginning, but it's starting to show its age. Parkour was done well in games like Assassin's Creed, but I always felt the Uncharted series did it best. It goes to show that doing one thing over and over can become tedious, no matter how much you love it. Uncharted 4: A Thief's End is a love letter to the fans that have been there since day one. It takes every chance it gets to remind you of the amazing journeys that have come before. The story of Nathan Drake is without a doubt over, but not without his best and most memorable journey left to be had. Uncharted 4 is a buy. What did you think of Uncharted 4: A Thief's End? Leave me a comment below and tell me, what's your favorite Uncharted game? If you like what you heard and want to hear more, be sure to click that subscribe button to stay up to date on all Shredded by Games content. And remember, let me waste money so you don't have to.